Coming up on Almost Adults.
Michael gets in, we're like 15 minutes out from doing the interview or something, and I'm like, this guy is fully going to do repairs in here. I don't know if we're going to be able to record.
Almost Adults kind of started, I think it was just going to be me and Claude just talking all the time. But we brought Kat on, and we really enjoyed her on the show. And we're like, why not bring more of our friends?
Yeah.
And so one day I just sent out like 15 plus emails, in which was Tom Farah. And then I was like, should we email Jason Steele? Whatever, screw it. We'll see what happens. I ran to the restroom. I freaking opened up the email, and I saw that he was like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Let's do it. I was like, oh my God.
My friend Gage is gonna talk to you. Oh, and John Claude, he'll be there, oh, too. Even though they're not close together, they're far away. There, one's in Tampa, the other one's in LA. Oh, Gage, what's the show called again?
Fucking, it's Almost Adults. Shit.
Almost adult. Shit.
Welcome to Almost Adults, episode 20! Yay!
Yay!
We have some very important guests on the podcast.
Very important.
My name is Michael Hunter.
And I'm David Spencer, and aka Mr. Sickman McGee.
Yeah,
this
this
is
is our
the sick cast.
Because David is sick.
Super
but he
sick.
Braved enough. He's here. So
The things
what
I
more
do
you
for
want
you
from him?
people.
And John Claude is also sick. And
I'm here. That's more than I can say for my own podcast.
That's how dedicated he is to like giving you guys an evaluation.
Yeah, this is how dedicated I am to finally coming down and telling you what I really think.
Oh, thank God. We're finally doing our like semi-annual reviews.
Yeah, yeah.
it's our 6 month review. Get out the paperwork. Get out the tax files.
Wait, it hasn't been 6 months, has it?
For Almost Adults?
Really?
Yay.
Is it?
By the time
It
this
has.
comes out, yeah.
Wow.
By the time this comes out, to be fair, it's probably going to be a year later.
Oh,
That means
goodness.
it's been like almost 6 months for Weird Alphabet as well.
Oh no, it's been over 6 months.
Has it?
Yeah, it's been over 6 months because you're on like episode 30.
Yeah, but
I think we just hit like 7 or 8.
ah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that I keep track of these things. I'm really great at this thing, you guys.
You may recognize Michael and David from their other podcast.
Well, you probably don't recognize me right now. I sound pretty different, but
He's still the loudest one out of all four
I'm
of us.
still managing to be the one with the biggest waveforms.
Congratulations.
That's
I'm
insane.
gonna print that on my business card. David Spencer, the biggest waveforms in podcasts.
That's a good segue because I have your old business card that you had from a year ago.
Aww.
For Thank You
My
Internet.
Thank You Internet business cards.
Yeah.
When our logo was...
Drawn by our good friend Ethan Howe.
That's when I first met David.
Okay, real quick. Do you know what is happening right now in
Yeah,
Beverly
podcast
Hills?
is happening right now.
Well, people are trying to sleep off their drunken stupor to wake up at noon for Podfest.
Oh.
But yes, Podfest is happening this weekend, which means it's been a year since I made a very important relationship in my podcasting career with Steele Saunders.
Yeah, Steele Saunders.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Round of applause for Steele Saunders.
Absolutely. Just a upstanding citizen.
Steele Saunders does Steel Wars, and he does another podcast.
But no, that means it's been a year since I met Gage.
Oh, me!
And you are... Okay, are we going into this now? Our origin
yeah,
stories
why
of
not?
everything?
Go right into it.
This is the origin of Pipedream Podcasts.
Well,
Na-na-na-na.
Because Podfest is the type of thing where most people are there just touting their own little shows, hoping to find somebody who will listen to them. So all weekend long, you've got people being like, oh, hey, I've got this little podcast, and everybody's going like, oh, yeah, that's cool, I'll check it out. But nobody ever does. But for some reason, Gage actually checked out my podcast.
I checked out a few podcasts,
and was a
to be fair.
fan.
I did like it. I
that's
did like
great.
it. And I told this story before on Thank You Internet twice now. I thought he was a pretentious
Oh,
dick.
no.
Yeah, I didn't like him very much. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll check out his podcast because I'm a nice fellow.
But Michael was on there, so that made it okay.
But Michael was on there,
Yeah,
and
so-
I really liked Michael. Michael's, I dare say, he's one of my best friends out here.
Oh.
Oh, he's got such a friendly tone of voice. I can imagine why.
Michael's everybody's best friend.
I mean, I'm basically the LA John Claude, so I'm okay.
Maybe we'll like high five and create like a singularity when we just
There it is.
fuse into each other.
And then we just become the hybrid.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And then the Almost Adults movie starts.
So yeah, after that, Gage was like, hey, listening, and then kept, wanting to insert himself into things, and me being like, I don't know how I feel about this weird kid with glasses trying to insert himself in all my shows, but if he's the only person listening to the podcast, I guess we gotta give him something. But no, it's worked out really well.
No, yeah, for real though. I mean, I remember when I started seeing the emails from you, Gage. I was like, oh, he actually is listening in on this and giving us feedback. And, it's
And actually, we had somebody who was a part of the show, which was crazy.
a recurring person that we would like, and our only listener, Gage Agnew.
I believe my main criticism was don't be too kiss-assy.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah. Except when it comes to you, right? Is that
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
all right.
Well, I did say no to Almost Adults at first.
You
And
did.
being like, I don't
you
want
did.
this.
That was very interesting.
Jean-Claude, do you know the whole story behind this?
I know a segment of it, the one that Gage decided that he would pitch to me, but I'm excited to hear the other side of the
I
story.
can't even remember what I pitched you.
No, because when you were talking about the show, okay, first of all, I bought the domain for Pipedream Podcasts 2.5 years ago when I started a different show called This Is Not a Film that's no longer going on. And I didn't even build it into a website. Well, we didn't build it into a website. By we, I mean Michael, until Thank You Internet, because it turns out I didn't know anything about doing that, and I didn't want to do the work on that. And so Michael thankfully picked up the slack on actually, making a website. And then it was like, okay, but the goal is always to have more than just this show. I want to do more shows, but also I want to be able to give a home for other shows and be able to expand and just be able to have a place for us all to be together. And then Gage started talking about wanting to do a podcast, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that could be, like, what's it about? What's your whole theme? Because my whole thing with wanting to do Pipedream Podcasts, with wanting to do podcasts in general, is like, I don't think there's really an audience anymore, a market anymore for, there is, but I don't necessarily want to be a part of the market of a couple of guys bullshitting about nothing for 2 hours.
And that's what I pitched it as. I pitched it as a bullshit podcast.
And that's literally the words you used, and I was like, you should have some sort of themes, have some sort of topics, and then you recorded your first episode. I did not enjoy it that much. I was not crazy about it. But then, for whatever reason, your second episode was like, okay, this is awesome, let's do this. But the funny thing is now, even though Almost Adults is honestly mostly still just a bullshit podcast, I don't know, something about me has come around to that, and the fact I'm like, oh, you actually guys do get an audience and listeners just talking about nothing and bullshitting about nothing, and it's like, all right, maybe I was a little wrong in that department, but also it's like, it's not just bullshitting, like there's still that loose structure, that loose idea of being Almost Adults.
Absolutely. Yeah, and throughout every podcast, there's always kind of a thread of a theme that we try to grasp upon with topics, but eventually we lose grip and then tangent off into a bunch of different things.
But that's okay. I think when I really knew that I didn't just want it as a part of the Pipedream podcast, but I knew that I legitimately enjoyed the show and was looking forward to episodes, was it was in the first couple episodes, but there was a moment where it was like, oh, I really want to be on there right now because I want to share this story about whatever they're talking about. That's when I knew it was like, yeah, okay, this show is good and this show has stuff, and I like the fact that it's part of this whole family. I feel like that's when you know that you really like something, when you want to be a part of it as well. And ever since then, I kept bugging Gage to be like, so when am I going to actually be on the show? Thankfully, it's finally happening.
Yeah, it took about 20 episodes,
Yes.
but you're here.
How many times have we tried scheduling this recording session and it not worked out for whatever reason?
Thrice, because I just recently invited you to the podcast, because I wanted you and Michael on for the 20th episode. I think that fit the theme rather well. I appreciate you guys giving me a chance, and I knew I had to have a talented partner, so I called up the talentedest person I know. Jean-Claude.
I thought you were going to use someone else's name there and then be like, well, since I couldn't get them.
No,
I
I'm
got
not
Jean-Claude.
a dick like that. I'm not like David being a total dickhead and doing misdirection. Do I look like a magician or something doing misdirection?
No, but you do have something brown on your nose. Oh, okay. But thank you for the compliment, Gage.
You know, Jean-Claude, I'd really like to know your side of coming into this and everything, because, like, I know Gage is all about internet stuff and making stuff, and I know that you are a big fan of that as well, but it's like, I don't know, what was your aspect, especially with what you're doing in your career direction now, what was your aspect about coming on to making a podcast? Like, were you a fan of podcasts? Is that something you've always wanted to do, is record stuff, or were you just like, yeah, sure, Gage, that sounds fun, let's do that.
Yeah. Let's get everyone's angle on this.
So it was a little bit of both. I've always been a fan of podcasts. Two in particular strike my mind at the moment. Radiolab, if you're familiar, as well as Serial, which was really booming around the time that Gage wanted to establish this. And, I mean, he pitched the idea to me to come on as a guest for the podcast. It wasn't outright asking me to be his co-host. I'm sure it was more of an audition kind of thing.
Technically, I always wanted Jean-Claude to be the co-host. So in my mind, I was asking him to be in there for the long haul. But I guess he interpreted it as a guest. Bye.
That's how I initially interpreted it. After the first episode, I was like, okay, all right, I'm in a seat of power here. Interesting.
He started, like, tapping his fingers together like, yes.
Good,
excellent.
yes.
Do it.
So I always had in the back of my mind the desire to do a podcast of my own. And there are a couple other ideas floating in my head at the moment of other things that would be more, for example, just to throw it out here, I have an idea in my head of doing a podcast that's based around medicine, and it would be geared towards pre-medical students and students in like their first or second year of med school. But that's still in the works and things like that. This is the perfect thing for me at the moment. It exercises my creative outlets. Gage has been amazing in who he's been able to get in contact with. It's been a blast.
That's what I love about podcasting, like what I always say I love about podcasting. It feels like it's the most relaxed form of being able to still have expression, still have some amount of artistry. I mean, really, I do believe that there is an art to conversation, and there is being able to express some form of artistry in like a really relaxed format, but also where you can just be passionate about what you're actually passionate about, and it's cool. I could talk about how much I love podcasts all day long.
Absolutely.
Michael, say something.
I know. I'm here.
It's just along for the ride.
Yes.
We discussed the origins of...
Oh, that's interesting. Well, see, that's the thing, too. It's like, I remember when you initially pitched it, because David kind of and I talked about it for a good few hours, because I wanted to give you more so of a chance. Not that he didn't want to give you a chance. It was more so just like, I don't know.
Turned off by the idea.
Exactly. He was definitely turned off. He's like, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm like, well, what if he were to make it specific? And what if he were to do this and this and this? Because it's like, with a name like Almost Adults, immediately I think of, talking about what it truly means to be an adult in this world. Like, do you actually ever grow up? Because I feel like I haven't. I have a job, I have a big boy job with big boy clothes, but I still feel like a kid at heart. So what does it actually mean to grow up? And so when David and I were talking about that, immediately he was like, oh, well, I'd listen to that. And I brought that up to you, Gage, being like, what if you were to try to do it this way? And so from there, we were like, we'd get behind a show like that. And so far, so good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's nice.
From my perspective, I just wanted to do a show where I talk to friends. And that's it. The Almost Adults theme is an incredibly loose backbone to it. Mm-hmm. But I still enjoy it. Some of me, I feel like I've duped David and Michael because it is a bullshit podcast at heart, but I pitch it as whatever this is.
But you still do make an effort to, have that framework, have the topics, even if you don't always, send those topics out to your guests for your episode. You at least make an effort to still have
Full
that.
Full disclosure, David, do your catchphrase. Do your catchphrase.
Peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's the one. Peek behind the curtain. I forgot to send it out to David and Michael, though I did send it out to Jean-Claude this time.
I mean, it's still there, and there's still a matter of, my theory with podcasting, but also my feelings with conversation in general. There's still a goal to what we're trying to talk about. It's not just about let's turn on mics and see what happens. There's still like, there does feel like some sort of sense of momentum with your conversation still, that you are trying to get towards a subject, even if it's just a matter of trying to mine for funny, interesting stories. Like, it's not just, there's so many people I've talked to, and like especially shows I've heard from people shilling their show at Podfest, that I'm just like, you guys don't have a goal in mind in your conversations. There needs to be some element of being able to, while being in the moment, to still be able to step back and be like, okay, what am I trying to accomplish with this conversation? What am I trying to accomplish with my audience? Because if I'm just turning on the mics to see what happens, 9 times out of 10, nothing's going to happen.
There needs to be a motivation behind what you're doing.
And if there isn't any motivation or goals in your podcast, you've certainly tricked me and everybody listening, because it does sound like that, at least for most episodes. To be honest, like, if it was not part of Pipedream Podcasts, I still would legitimately look forward to listening to your episodes.
Thanks, man.
Aw, thank you. That's awesome. That's a really inspiring thing to hear. I think recently we've drifted more. Well, I've tried to anyways. I think Gage is still very, very stuck on the conversational aspect of it. I've tried to gear us more towards an interview-based thing. And Gage, you've been great bringing on a lot of guests, like Nick Darhorse is always the one that I'm going to be referencing back to.
Right. By the way, that interview took me forever to get her on. She was down with it. She was like in the middle of a Kickstarter. She was doing commissions.
You want to talk about interviews that have taken a long time to get put together? We had somebody, and it's somebody who's awesome, but we were emailing back and forth with him for at least 6 months before we finally got it nailed down. We're like, this is going to be the thing. It's going to be awesome. And it was the type of thing where he'd be like, yeah, I'm so down for an interview. And we're like, awesome. How's this time? And then nothing. And then a couple weeks later, be like, hey, are you still interested in doing an interview? Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. I got caught up with all this other stuff. And then we're like, awesome. How's this day and time? And nothing again. Yeah. And this, that repeated for like 6 months until finally we got our day and time nailed in. We're like, yes, this is going to happen. It's going to be awesome. And then Michael is on the way to my apartment. We record everything in my crappy apartment.
With your broken fire alarm.
With my broken fire alarm.
Recent weird alphabets, and thank you, Internet. So you hear that beep every minute. And it drives me crazy.
Yeah, I keep trying to edit it out, but it still persists. Somebody emailed Weird Alphabet about it, which was hilarious.
Yeah, they're like, please fix your fire alarm. Love the podcast, thank you.
It's so entertaining to me that somebody from Canada, who I've never met before, knows that my fire alarm is broken.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just the idea of having people that you don't even know have an inside look into your life, even some small glimpse is crazy.
Exactly. Like, we talked about it, but we have an animated out that you should totally watch because it's very, very funny.
Yeah, it's super entertaining.
And the guy who made it, his name is Quackatron3000, and he messaged me on Twitch one day, and he's like, is this Gage from Almost Adults? And I thought he was pulling my leg, and I'm like, yeah, this is the Gage Agnew. And he's like, oh, well, I'm making an animation for you because I enjoy your show a lot. And I'm like, what? Do I know you from somewhere? And he's like, no, I'm in Australia, so I doubt you know me.
That's how we felt when we got Bradley and the Malfoys, who somehow found out about Weird Alphabet, and he was like, oh, I'm going to start doing a thing on my YouTube channel where I cover every Weird Al song on a ukulele in honor of your show. And it was just like, that's amazing.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Check out Draco and the Malfoys.
Yeah. So to go back to the recording story. So my apartment's really crappy, and one of the crappy things about my apartment is I'm at the very end of the line, of the sink line, because everybody's plumbing goes through the same pipes, and sometimes my sink will gurgle. You might have heard it in the background of a couple episodes.
Definitely.
I usually try to cut it out, but it got to a point sometimes where it would get so clogged up that water would start coming up, and it was something that, I had always talked to my landlord, hey, I need to get this fixed, I need to get it taken care of. So Michael's on the train on his way over, and water starts filling up in the sink and starts to go over the sink and overflow, and I'm like, fuck.
My God.
So I call my landlord and I'm like, hey, my sink is overflowing. I need something to happen right now with this. And he's like, oh yeah, the repair guys, I actually just showed up and he's gonna come take a look at your sink. I'm like, awesome. In my brain, for some reason, I was like, oh, this is gonna be just a short-term fix. And then I was like, hey, we need to do something in here. And it was gonna be a long-term fix later on. And the guy gets in and starts tearing everything apart. And now we're looking at, Michael gets in, we're like 15 minutes out from doing the interview or something. And I'm like, this guy is fully going to do repairs in here. I don't know if we're going to be able to record. Send our guest an email being like, hey, can we push it, like, what did we ask? We asked if we could push it like a half hour or something because we weren't sure how long the guy was going to take. And then our guest emails back is like, actually, I have to be somewhere in an hour, so you have this hour with me. And we're like, fuck, it's been so hard to get him nail down his schedule to get even to this point. How in the world would, like, we can't cancel on this. We're never going to be able to get it again. Yeah. So at this point, we're sitting there, we're trying to figure it out, and we're like, it's right at the time we're supposed to start the Skype call. I had just bought new microphone stands and had it all set up and like,
it was all nice.
Fit into my table and everything. And I was just like, I don't know how this is going to go, because I was like, can we just record anyways, even though this guy's working in the background? Maybe he won't be that loud. I don't think the guy spoke English though, but as soon as we said that, he pulls out a fucking power drill and starts going, and we're like, fuck. So now it's getting to the point. It's 10 minutes past when we were supposed to start. And we're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to, like, what the fuck are we going to do? And so finally, I'm like, you know what? Unscrew the mics from the stand. So it's the little blue snowball. So it's like the little orb. Unscrew it from the stand. So you're just literally holding the orb. Grab the cords. And then we went upstairs onto the roof of my building, and we sat on the roof and recorded it up there.
I remember I think I was the one that pitched that idea. I was like, David, why don't we just go up to the roof? Can we get to the roof? And you're like, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, a little noise versus a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And then so here we are sitting on top of the roof, having little orbs in our hands.
Yeah,
talking
sitting there like holding wine glasses, just like talking into your hand. It was a great episode. You can hear some bird sounds in the background, and you can tell we were going fast through our questions because we're like, okay, at this point, we have 40 minutes, and just that, we got to book it through because this was a big guest. It ended up being great. It was really fun, but it was...
Oh, I thought you lost that episode.
No.
I was just waiting for that part, and we're like, and we lost it.
Wait, so you're saying you don't remember an episode, Gage, with bird sounds in the background?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
John Claude, I assume you're going to be editing this, so just cut out all of that.
Oh.
No, don't cut it out. I like it.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, that was our worst thing, trying to get...
Yes, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, that was the worst thing, trying to get Nick in for an interview. It was like a 3-month process. But yeah, I really liked that episode. That was a huge stepping stone for our podcast, because Jean-Claude started to edit it, and lo and behold, Jean-Claude is just good at everything, so he fucking nails that episode, and I'm like, fuck. This is the new standard for our episodes. Because I didn't want to, like, backtrack. So now I've been editing the episodes and giving it to Jean-Claude. I'm like, just do your thing, clean this up, and it'll be good.
Secret behind the... what is it? What did you say? Take a look behind the curtain?
Take a look behind the curtain. That's our thing.
It's the Kroger brand.
It's our own original thing.
Yes. To take a look at my process, I get the files from Gage. I boot up my computer, I boot up Audacity, and Adobe Audition, and then I call up my friend, the audio editor, and then send it to them to do it.
And guys, here's the secret. I'm the audio editor. Jean-Claude asked me on the side, like, can you do this project? I'm like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, sounds familiar. I don't know where I've heard this before, but I edit it anyways.
Actually, you know what? I just realized I'm about to go into an odd thing where I'm about to, for the first time, edit a podcast that I was not a part of.
Yeah.
Because Gage and Michael recorded an episode of Thank You Internet that I was not able to be there for.
Yeah, that should be out. We interviewed Jesse J. Jones. Mm-hmm. Jesse's just an awesome person.
He was really cool.
And it's part of the internet that Michael and David have not explored yet.
Streamers. Yeah.
Streamers, yeah.
It was a very interesting conversation to talk about him, but yeah, that episode should definitely should be up now.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's one of the things I like about having you in the fold here, Gage, is because honestly, I feel like you know more about the internet than I do, and that means more pockets of the internet we're able to cover and talk about.
So, should we go into the origin behind that?
behind
Yeah,
Thank You
yeah.
Internet?
Behind Thank You Internet?
Please,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I even heard this story.
You probably have. Okay, so David was just getting off of doing his show, This Is Not a Film, which we did an episode together with.
Yes.
We actually did record, and that was kind of my first introduction to this podcast world was David's podcast, and I was going, okay, we're just going to talk about Dogma, I think, and that was it.
I love Dogma, by the way. I think
great
that's a
movie.
brilliant film.
It was a good movie. So David was like, I just want to do something. I want to do something. Like, what are you passionate about, Michael? And we're sitting in our break room at our work, and what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? And I'm like, I don't know, the internet. We always watch YouTube videos and stuff. I remember us talking about these shows, Ask a Ninja and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, I like that. And
Well, and I just want to say, from my perspective here, me and Michael have been friends for a long time. Like, in high school, I helped out with some of your videos, but we did plays together and stuff. And I always love the idea of creating stuff with Michael. I really enjoy our collaboration, and let's be fair, I like latching myself to the talent train that is Michael Hunter. Trying to find...
Hey, I did that.
And that was something that's like, I always want to make podcasts. And like, I have ideas for shows that I would like, but I don't have anybody to do them with. And I have people that I want to do shows with, but I don't necessarily have an idea for what that show would be. This was in the latter categories. Like, I would love to just make something with Michael, but I don't necessarily know what that is yet.
yeah, that does make a lot of sense, actually, looking back, where you were just like, what do you want to do? And so then we're like, yeah, let's talk about internet stuff. And just, somehow we got into the whole interview aspect of it.
Well, one of the big things for me, because this was right around the time that Monium from Rooster Teeth passed away.
Right.
I am obsessed with Rooster Teeth, everything Rooster Teeth. If anybody listening to this has also listened to Thank You Internet, you would know that I spend all my life just talking about how much I love that company.
Yeah, why are you at Podfest, man? They're doing a...
I know, I missed the fucking show last night. God damn it. But no, going back to Monium, I thought he was such an interesting and talented guy, and I was just like, the world's not going to know how talented this guy was because he was some internet weirdo. He has created some of the most exciting and ingenious fight scenes that I've ever seen in any sort of visual medium, but nobody's going to know this because he did stuff on the internet, therefore nobody's going to care about the fact that there's real artistry into this, and I want to be able to highlight people like that, because I feel like there's not enough appreciation for artistry that goes into internet stuff, and I want to help alleviate that. That was a lot of my desire going into Thank You Internet.
I'm just like, I'll fucking do a podcast.
But it all goes back to what David was saying, though. It's all about that motive. David had a strong motive going in, and I was coming from your aspect, Gage, where I'm like, I just want to talk about the internet. And next thing I knew, he was like, oh yeah, I have this YouTuber friend.
Well, before that, I want to say, because there was one time at work when we were both working at the same job together, and we spent a long conversation really nailing down what we wanted out of the show, what we wanted to be like, and then we were trying to figure out a title. Do you remember the story of this? We were trying to figure out something that, we need a good title and has to say something about the purpose of the show, but also, why we love the internet, why we want to talk about it. And at the time, we didn't even think about doing interviews yet, necessarily. We wanted to do interviews, but we didn't think of that as the aspect of the show. We were like, well, we'll do interviews sometimes, but most of the time we'll just talk about what we like on the internet. And really, that was mostly because I would love to do interviews, but we're not going to be able to get
That's
any
actually
interviews.
how Almost Adults kind of started. I think it was just going to be me and John Claude just talking all the time. But we brought Kat on, and we really enjoyed her on the show. And we're like, why not bring more of our friends?
Yeah.
I think that worked out all right.
No, it worked out
definitely,
great. Always
definitely.
perspectives.
Oh yeah. Oh god, especially the Lovecast one. That's one of my favorites of your guys' episodes.
This is the sequel to the Lovecast because it's the 20th episode.
Hey.
So you better do good, or I'm fired.
Do well, Gage. Do well. Come on. Professionality, my boy.
No, we're doing good. We're saving orphanages right now.
Okay. We're doing the good work.
You're doing the good work. I'm doing the bad work. John Claude's doing the ugly work.
There you go.
Oh.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about the ugly. That kind of the ugly work. What you're doing the nasty? Is that what we're talking about?
I was going down a darker route. Just
Okay.
Oh, Batman.
Killing people behind the scenes
Yeah.
who don't agree
The
with our
dark
podcast.
deed you have requested is done, sir.
Excellent, my child. Go forth and murder all of our naysayers. Murder all the haters.
So we were sitting in our break room, and we were spitballing different titles, and we weren't getting anywhere, and so eventually it just devolved into us looking up stupid shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Because that's how everything goes. And then, I don't remember what it was, but we found some goofy picture, and then Michael,
No, it wasn't a goofy picture. It was an article. See, I'm trying to remember what exactly the article was about.
Oh my goodness, okay, yes! Oh, I remember this now.
Yeah.
I remember this now. Because one of the things we're talking about is like, I was floating around the idea of like kids of the internet because we grew up on the internet. Homestar Runner was our Saturday morning
That's right.
cartoon. Like, no, that sounds awful. And I was like, we're kind of like brothers in coming into this. We're the brotherhood of the internet. And then I Googled that and we found the craziest article. I don't remember who was hating on, but it was like some weird like blog post hating on somebody for being awful. And it was like signed sincerely, the brotherhood of the internet. And it was the strangest thing. It was so bonkers and beyond. We gotta
Links
go.
to that article will be in the.
I hope so. Well, if we go back to the first episode of Thank You Internet, I think we mentioned this as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just like the most bonkers thing, and then Michael was just laughing.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, wow, yeah, thanks, Internet. Thank you, Internet.
And then we were like, thank you, Internet! Yes! And that's how it happened. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good times.
Freeze frame.
They high five, freeze frame, credits roll. Executive producer Chuck Laurie.
We recorded our first 3 episodes. We're going to record our like basic intro, like why we're doing this, what we like. We'll try out an interview, because I have a buddy who is a YouTube guy, cover artist, Caleb Hiles. I'm like, we'll try out an interview, see how that goes. Let's just choose a web topic and talk about, or not even a web topic, it was like Homestar Runner. We were going to do an episode devoted to our love for Homestar Runner. Like, oh, we'll choose different like other channels, podcasts, or videos, or web comics, and just spend an hour just basically saying what we like about it type of thing.
By the way, you should still totally do a Homestar Runner episode.
Oh, we recorded it. It's not been released.
It was all over the place.
It was not good.
It was not good. It was not good.
And that's why we were like, let's just stick to interviews.
Yeah, originally, yeah, it was exactly that. We were doing discussion episodes because we couldn't get interviews. But then as soon as we got more interviews, then it just became...
Well, I never thought we could get interviews. I was like, we'll have a couple of people that we've got, but like that's all our connections. So we'll try to spread those out as much as possible and, you know, see what happens. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to last. And then out of nowhere, Michael's like, so I got Dom Fair for the show. And I was like,
dude,
what?
I saw that.
And I was like,
it's amazing.
What? And he was like, yeah, Dom Fair, the guy who did Laser Team. And I was like,
Or the
really?
Laser
And I was
Collection,
like,
yeah.
like, are you friends
Laser
with him
Collection.
or something? Yeah, not Laser Team. Wow, sorry, Laser Collection.
Ew.
See, my head's in rooster teeth again.
And you also got Jason Steele, which is incredible.
Okay, with that, I remember...
That only happened because of Dom Fair.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. So one day, after we recorded like 2 or 3 episodes or something, I think it was 2 episodes, we did like 2 discussions or something. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try and get more interviews. And so we sat down writing a list of people who we wanted to have on the show. And the back of my notebook, and I just wrote a bunch of names down.
I don't know if I gave any hint to this, but at the time, I was like, this is never going to happen. There's no way we're going to get even one name off of this. I will indulge this, but this is impossible. There's no way this is going to happen.
Right. I was like, you know what? All right, cool. And I got the list, and then I started looking up emails because on YouTube, there's an area where people have their emails for business contacts. And so I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll send them an email. And so one day I just sent out like 15 plus emails, in which was Tom Farah. And then I was like, should we email Jason Steele? Whatever, screw it. We'll see what happens. So we interviewed Dom Farah. We do a bunch of other interviews because there was.
Well, I just have to say, before the whole Dom Fair thing, like you told me that, and I wasn't even aware you were sending out emails. And my perspective was like, oh, did we like know somebody who knew him or something? And then Michael's like, no, I just sent him an email. And it's like, what do you mean? People just respond to cold call emails? Like, yeah, he was just like, yeah, sure, that sounds fun. I was like, but we don't know him. He doesn't know us. Why would he say yes? And all of a sudden, it was like, oh, now this could actually be a thing.
He did actually say something along the lines. I remember Michael telling me the story about a year ago. That I'm like, how'd you get Jason Steele? He's like, well, normally he doesn't do podcasts, but he liked our idea so much that he did it.
Yeah, well, after we had the episode with Dom Farah, it was about like a few weeks later. It was like a month after I had emailed him. And out of the blue, I'm at work, and I look down on my phone, even though I'm not supposed to look at it, and I see that I got an email.
Report Michael to his old job.
Don't do it.
So they can fire him again.
Fire me in the past. But seriously, I saw Jason Steele's photo in like my Google notification for like, you got an email from, and I'm like, what? And then immediately went Like, I called up on the radio. I was like, I need a bathroom break right now. And so someone came and relieved me. I ran to the restroom. I freaking opened up the email, and I saw that he was like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. Let's do it. I was like, oh my God. And as soon as I did that, I sent David. Didn't I send you an email? Or not, I sent you a text.
Yeah.
And I was like, we got him.
Yes, good.
We got Jason Steele. It was really cool. And after that, like...
And it's just been a straight plateau ever since.
He was our peak, and then
we died out.
Nothing better than Charlie the Unicorn.
Yeah, but honestly, I think it was because of that was the reason why it just worked from then on.
He was able to keep going. Well, for the most part, able to keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kept being able to get bigger and bigger guests from then on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we've ever got a download spike as big as Jason Steele.
Yeah.
But we got more and more people that we were like, you know what, if Jason Steele said that he'd do it...
I'm sure all these other people did.
Exactly.
And most of them did.
Yeah. That was sort of the same thing with our first special guest, Mr. Mick Lauer. I just called him out of the blue because my philosophy when it's come to interviewing people, I'm like, we need to either respect them or love their work. With Mick, it just happened to be both. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Really loved that episode. That episode means a lot to me, even though I consider it to be one of my personally the worst episode that I've done personally.
But that's not your fault. Wasn't your mic like not picking up for the first 15 minutes?
Yeah, for like 15 minutes my mic was muted, so I kept trying to interject and they just kept talking and I'm like, oh no.
Freaking Mick and I are just going to town about Dark Souls and
yeah,
shooting the shit.
Thank God for John Claude. I think he has a lot of really good wisdom too. We felt the same way with Mick and we just kept going up ever since.
That's kind of what I love about the grand gurus of the internet. People like Rice Pirate, especially like Jason Steele. They're these people that offer so much wealth of wisdom because they've done everything. Mm-hmm. They do all of the components of their work, and it's just amazing. I don't know how they do it.
You want to talk about OwlTurd Hollywood? Let me show you some OwlTurd. Does anybody know what that word means? It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Film student in me. Wait, so none of you guys have ever heard the word OwlTurd?
I've
heard the word, but I don't know what it meant.
I'm just too tired to think of it right now.
I've heard O'Douls.
It's
That's
like
about
I
it.
heard of Peter O'Toole.
Okay, not to digress too much, but it's like this whole thing with snobby film people that they're like, oh, the auteur, meaning the author of the film, as in this is the person who is the sole responsibility, whereas in most cases, movies, TV shows are much more of a team effort. You can credit so many different people for having so many different good ideas, but there's certain quote-unquote auteurs who is like, no, they want to do everything themselves. Like, everybody talks about Stanley Kubrick as an auteur because he's got a very distinct style and he does his own thing, but it's like, yeah, but he doesn't write the scripts. He doesn't edit his own films. He doesn't shoot. He doesn't DP his own films. He directs, and he has a very distinct style. But if you want to talk about a real auteur, somebody who does every aspect themselves, go to the internet.
Mr. Mick Lauer, if you're listening,
you are better than Stanley Kubrick.
You are better than Stanley Kubrick.
So just quickly checking back for a second, because I too am a huge fan of Homestar Runner. Just to give an example, friends and I very often go to conventions, comic book conventions, things like that. And
wait, you're in the area where they had the Homestar Runner concert recently. Did you try to go to that?
No, I didn't even realize about that they had a Homestar Runner concert.
It was like a month or two ago, and it was in your neck of the woods.
It was like their anniversary concert.
20th anniversary.
They had like puppets and live performance. Yeah, like it was all over their Twitter.
He's fairly new to Twitter. He doesn't really.
So we're not gonna fault you on
I have
that.
like 30 people following me on Twitter. So we go to these conventions, and this is just a really minor joke that we always do. But you're familiar with strong bad emails, yeah?
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. So
I'm sorry. Who do you think I am? Who the fuck do you think I am to be making a show called Thank You Fucking Internet and not know what the fuck you're talking about with strong bad emails?
The system is
Get
down.
the fuck out of here.
So there's one in particular that's one of my favorites. It's Strong Bad getting an email like, can you make an anime show or a Japanese cartoon show? I think Japanese cartoon show or something like that.
Yeah.
And
You gotta have blue hair.
And blue hair.
yeah, it does. Yes. Okay. So we're at these conventions, and obviously, when you go to these conventions, you'll have people who have dyed their hair crazy colors, and always you'll have these girls that are coming around with blue hair. And my friend Connor and I will just distinctly like turn to each other, and at the same time, we just be like, "You gotta have blue hair."
That's great.
Awesome.
That's great.
I've never been to a convention with John Claude. I should probably start.
Come back out.
Oh yeah.
John Claude.
Oh, it's hella fun.
Come back out, sister.
Come to LA and we'll do Comic Kazi. That's Stan Lee's thing.
Okay.
Maybe I should go to that
Cool.
sometime.
Maybe you should, David.
Give the backstory of that.
Of what?
Kamikaze?
Kamikaze?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to our buddy Dan, who's also on Weird Alphabet. This is by far like the non-eventful story of all time. He just comes, he's like, "Hey, I need some hosts for this show,
This video game website.
and do you want to go to this convention?" And we're like, can we do internet stuff too? Like, if possible? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. And we're like, cool. That was it. We filled out the paperwork. We got accepted.
Perfect.
And
they
we
met Matt Pat.
That
They
was-
met Tommy Wiseau.
Yes, that
I
was
gotta
like,
say,
Wow.
that 20 minutes we had with Matt Pat, where we just grabbed him on the floor and like, hey, can you just like talk to us for like 15 minutes? We just want to talk, like, doing this podcast. Honestly, that is one of my favorite moments of doing the podcast. Like, I really enjoy Matt Pat. Like, I wouldn't put him as one of my favorite people on the internet, but that was one of those. Do you ever feel like when you're doing interviews, especially with people that you don't necessarily have as much of a connection with? Because I know you've had a couple of interviews that, like, you've talked to them before, but they're not like your friend. Do you ever have this moment where you're having
I think
conversation?
everyone who's on the podcast is my friend.
Aww. Well, do you
That's
ever
cute.
have
Alright,
this
go on,
moment
go on.
where you're having a conversation and then all of a sudden you're just like, we are speaking the same language right now. Like, we're
Oh,
going
yeah.
the same direction. That's the words I always put it into, is we're speaking the same language. And that's how I felt about that Matt Pat interview, where I was just like, oh my goodness, we are just like on the same page. This is fucking awesome.
and it's
awesome.
on it's on video too,
Oh, it
so you
was
can
so
see
great.
that moment where David goes, "Yes."
I was so excited. That was such a blast. Like, after that, I was just like, Matt Pat's one of my favorite people now. Like, I don't know. He was just so rad.
I don't think I in particular have had that on this show before. I might have had that in just a random interaction.
Yeah.
John Claude definitely had it with Mick.
Oh, absolutely. I was gonna say.
Oh, I could definitely tell. I remember that episode.
Yeah,
Like,
and they're like Dark Souls, and Mike is like, "Oh, I had this one really cool Dark Soul moments that was just for me personally." And meanwhile, I'm trying to unmute my mic.
And I'm over here, I'm just like, yes, Mick, tell me more about Dark Souls. It's so good. It was amazing. We logged into Skype call because Gage was like, okay, let's try and add him on Skype. And I'm sitting there like, okay, this is really happening. We're really getting him in here. And he comes in, he's got his deep booming voice. And of course, I spend the first 10 minutes of the podcast introducing him and just kind of gushing over how much I admire him. And then once we start rolling into the actual conversation, I'm like, I'd sleep on this guy's couch. This is a guy. It was amazing.
Yeah, Mick ended up coming to California, and we actually ended up having dinner because
Oh, that's
he was.
awesome.
Yeah, he's such a fucking chill guy.
That's
and,
awesome.
I think we're gonna do karaoke next time he's here.
Oh, that's rad. I've had that feeling a bunch of times with Thank You Internet. Like, I think one of the ones that sticks out is when we interviewed the guys from Darths and Droids, because we ended up just doing an extra 30 minutes of talking about board games that we ended up like cutting out of the main episode because nobody's going to care about this. We'll release it as an extra bonus thing as well, just in case somebody cares about
you
board
never
games.
did.
But what?
And you never.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it's totally up there,
Oh.
right?
Totally
You
forgot.
didn't delete it, did you? Okay.
I was. That's weird because I was just talking to Michael about. I'm like, yeah, I didn't really like that Darks and Droids episode.
You know what? That's fine. That's fine because sometimes.
Sometimes you're wrong.
Well, that's the weird thing about. Okay, while we're on the subject of you guys doing more interviews, don't just turn into a complete interview show. Still have just your buddies on every now and then. This is what I'm kind of discovering with Thank You Internet, or I feel like I've discovered a couple months ago, and I'm like, one of the reasons why it's been hard to get back into it, it is so hard to find an audience for an interview show like that, to find a regular listening audience. Because the thing is that because me and Michael aren't already an established property going into it, people are only going to tune in, oh yeah, I know this person will listen to the interview, but also because it's not about me and Michael showing our personalities as much as it is about highlighting our guests. Nobody's going to keep listening to the next episode just because, oh, well, I like the way these guys do interviews, that I want to keep listening to what they do.
Right. They might just be in there for Jason Steele.
Part of doing a good interview is being able to highlight the guest more than yourself.
Right.
But it means that nobody's going to listen unless, like, we were already an established entity. Like, you know, that's why somebody like Mark Maron can do a fucking fantastic job at that and people will keep listening because he is such an established entity already going into it, that it's so much easier for him to actually have the continuous audience and actually have, you know, people pay attention to I'm listening to this because Mark Maron is awesome and also his guests are awesome, as opposed to I want to listen to this awesome guest, and even if the interviewers are cool, like it's, I don't know, I feel like peek behind the curtain here. Part of the reason why I like coming on for Almost Adults, and I'm excited that one of the things you wanted to talk about was just where things are with our podcast and where things are going. Like, I would feel weird saying this on Thank You Internet itself, because it's not like I don't enjoy doing the show, and it's not like I want it to go away, but honestly, numbers wise, I don't want to freak out about numbers or whatever, but we have not grown an inch since the Jason Steele episode.
Yeah.
Which is pretty difficult, honestly. And I think part of that is just because of the format. Like, it's hard to get. And that's, part of the reason why I'm glad Pipedream is expanding and people being attracted to other shows might then get them attracted back to Thank You Internet. And that's also part of the reason why we've kind of talked about this, but I don't know if necessarily been fully out there. But I really am glad that you Gage just did an interview, and I want you to be able to do more. In fact, I would love for your voice to be a part of the show just as much as mine. I'm all for consistency, but at the same time, I think because of the way that show is, where we're not necessarily going to have a consistent audience base because of different people come on for their guests, not having consistent hosts doesn't seem like as much of a problem. Being able to bring on different people who know more about this certain, like, I would love to get Vinny to guest host sometime, because he's got pockets of the internet that he knows.
For Almost Adults, that's Vinny Cavanaugh.
Yeah, Vinny Cavanaugh, not your Vinny, our Vinny.
Yeah. No, I would like Vinny to host. He sort of did with the bonus episode that we put out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was driving that thing, and I'm like, man, he is on top of it. Because the first time he was on, Vinny was like a shoo-in for me to be on the podcast. But, like, we couldn't hear him, we just had to, like, somewhat guess what he was saying. I think that episode turned out all right. It was all over the place, but it was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the interview aspect, I think it's always going to be, like, a personality-driven show with our friends and...
Like with Almost Adults.
Yeah, with Almost Adults. It's going to be a personality.
And I think that's one of the things that I underestimated when I started doing Thank You Internet. When I started wanting to make podcasts, I mean, peek behind the curtain into my own life, I have been trying to make my own podcast since almost 10 years ago. Literally, almost 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I recorded an episode for a Munchkin podcast that I wanted to make. I have been trying to make podcasts for years because I just love the world so much and I love the medium so much. And something that I really underestimated before really trying to help build Pipedream Podcasts and help continue to grow, I really underestimated how personality-driven of a medium it is. I really, really underestimated how much it means to actually have a personality and have that voice that people like to listen to.
And that's how David got a personality.
Sold his soul to the devil right afterwards.
Which is why now half of Thank You Internet is us just exploding of madness over everything broken with YouTube.
That's kind of what it has.
Hashtag YouTube Heroes.
Oh, for real. Yeah, Gage and I talked about YouTube Heroes.
What's YouTube Heroes?
Oh, God, no. Not
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
we're not going to get into
Not
this
right now.
Oh, I was about to ask the same question because I'm not familiar either.
Do your research, y'all.
Okay.
Yeah, long story short, YouTube is going through tiers, basically giving power to the people to self-govern, to self-mediate. So,
I feel like power to the people means power to only the people that we want to have power.
Oh, no. This is literally, hey, you do these things enough, get enough points, you then go to this tier, which then allows you to mass flag people.
Yeah, and basically shut down their channel.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
The only people who have time to do this are little children.
Or people who don't have any lives.
This isn't what I meant, YouTube. When I said that you need to be a company who works with people and isn't just a fucking robot, this is not what I fucking meant.
I mean,
Okay,
they have
I won't
people.
get
It's
into
just
it.
10-year-old kids.
I won't get into it.
YouTube is just one big capture robot.
It is.
That's all it is.
Well, this is like when we were talking to Mr. Rebel on the show. Like, he was like, the internet used to be punk rock, and now the record companies have gone and bought out all the punk artists, and now it's just the studio system again. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is a perfect analogy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Weeble.
Shout out to Mr. Weeble.
Is he still doing
Weeble
stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's still
He
doing
is?
stuff.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. He just released a new album with, like, his faux band, which is now a real band. Anyways.
Well, one of the things that he mentioned in the interview, which I don't know if it would ever happen, but I so desperately want to have happen, is an actual full produced series of Magical Trevor. Oh, it would be so
Yes.
But, I'll tie it back into your personality point. That's why I think Weird Alphabet is doing so well.
Yes, that's 100% the truth.
Yeah, let's transition into Weird Alphabet.
Sure.
Because I got some things to say about that.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay. Okay, so the
Or should we say the origin?
Well, I'll lead into the origin.
Okay.
So the personality point is us four on that show are very different personalities. And the one way that I could explain it was how we all interact with each other. So David tries to keep everybody on track, which you've now
Become a joke.
Yeah, it's become a joke now that you try to like keep the things on track, and then meanwhile you're slipping into madness.
Meanwhile, Andrew is doing everything in his power to not be on track whatsoever.
Yep. And then Dan and I are left in the middle to go,
Give actual information.
Yeah, we give information, but then we also go, do we want to back David right now, or do we want to back Andrew right now? And it'll go either way.
The funny thing is with that, I would not be surprised if somebody who only knew us from listening to the Weird Alphabet would think that me and Andrew would like not get along or dislike each other. Andrew is one of my favorite people on the fucking planet, and when we were putting together the show, because I was like, we want to have a group, like 4 people is a good number. You were the one who was like, we need to have Dan, and I was the one who was like, we need to have Andrew, and that's how we put together our 4. I was the one who wanted Andrew on in the first place, but it's become a thing where it's like, it's more entertaining to fill the role of the people who is always pissed off at Andrew's shenanigans.
You always threaten to like, okay, this is it. You don't get this segment.
You don't get to do this anymore.
What's it like, if you don't mind me asking, what's it like holding together a podcast of 4 hosts? That seems...
Especially when we try to
enough.
keep it around 20 minutes.
Right. Is that difficult?
Okay, so going into it, I knew that I wanted each of us to have our own thing to do on the show. My original thing is like, oh, everybody could have their own kind of segment thing. But at the time, the only thing I knew was like, Michael knows a ton about Weird Al's movie and TV appearances. Michael can do that. Oh, and I would love to like, I don't know, rank all the Weird Al songs because I think that's fun to just arbitrarily rank things. And I was like, I don't know what Dan or Andrew could do, but then they kind of just fell into that really naturally. In fact, originally I was like, it would be funny because Dan has a really like dry, reserved voice. I was like, it would be really funny just have him read some of the funniest lyrics from each song. Like that would be a funny segment. We ended up not doing that, and now we slipped into the whole deeper meaning thing, and Andrew's whole thing just came out of fucking nowhere. Fun fact of the day, which has nothing to do with anything. Like that's part of it, that like everybody has their own thing to do on the show. It makes it so everybody kind of naturally fills a role. And there's also the whole, you can prescribe the Ninja Turtles theory on how a group of 4 is going to interact. I don't know if you know much about the whole Ninja Turtles personality types theory, but basically, inevitably...
Why are you giving me that condescending stare?
Inevitably...
Like I don't know the Ninja Turtles, David.
Inevitably...
I will step up and say that I don't know the Ninja Turtle theory, so please elucidate me.
I've just seen a couple of people talk about it on the internet. In
so
fiction...
you don't even know the Ninja Turtles theory. You're just
There is no official Ninja Turtles theory is what I'm saying, but essentially it goes back to the whole, an idea of Greek storytelling archetypes of the 4 humors, and basically there's 4 personality types that a lot of TV shows, movies will go to, and the most pure form of that is the Ninja Turtles. You have the leader, you have the moody, angsty kind of runaway, you have the brainiac nerd, and you have the goofball. And like those 4 personality types, you can associate with Seinfeld, you can associate with Scooby-Doo, you can associate with so many different other properties. But I really feel like inevitably, in a group of 4 people talking, even just friends in a conversation, inevitably, each person is going to fall into one of those 4 categories. When I first moved out here, I was living with 3 other guys. There were 4 of us in a 2-bed hotel room for 2 months, which was crazy, but we so quickly each fell into one of those 4 archetypes. And I feel like...
Were you the goofball, David?
No, I was Donnie. I was the nerdy brainiac who didn't know how to talk to girls.
I feel like you would be the April O'Neil. You always need to be rescued, and you always wear yellow.
But now it's like the Weird Alphabet. I am the Leo on there. Andrew's obviously the Mikey.
Oh, yeah.
You're probably the Raph. Dan's the only one who brings notes, so he's the Donnie.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely the Raph because I'm the only one on the show that has gotten angry.
So we've naturally fallen into those 4 personalities, and letting that happen naturally, I think, has been a good way to keep it together. I know it does get really chaotic, but... I don't know, we have an audience who enjoys us that is consistently growing. So I'm like, I don't want to mess with anything. Like, if we have that, that's fucking awesome, and I don't want to break the format because I think people like the format. Like, we've got the audience who interacts with us to prove it, so, which is cool.
Half of my mind, I'm like, should I talk about it? If you folks are comfortable with it.
You're not into it?
No, I listen to it like every week.
Oh, okay.
My thing with Weird Alphabet was that I don't see how it can grow. That's my main thing with Weird Alphabet. Every week, it's essentially the same thing. They talk about the song, they goof off, which is fun to listen to. But for me personally, I don't see what kind of substance to it. That's why I enjoyed the CBR episode, because you folks do something. CNR?
Yeah, CNR. It's all good.
Okay, CNR. And
Not Charles Belson Riley.
that's why I enjoyed that episode, because you folks are doing something different. And when you talked about some of the goals of your podcast, I'm like, well, what's sort of the creative substance to go along with that? Where I can see Thank You Internet, and even Almost Adults to some extent, expanding in that region. I don't see Weird Al expanding any more than it already has.
I have a comment that I could say that at. Michael, do you want to...
I mean, you can go ahead.
We're all friends here.
We are all friends here, and, like, I'm glad that we can talk about this kind of thing, because from my perspective, I don't fucking need it to change into anything else. I love exactly what it is, exactly what we're doing, and you're right. I don't think there is anything else we can do with the podcast. I mean, we're already on such a niche subject of talking about Weird Al songs in alphabetical order.
Right.
It's like, to change that, I feel like would be a disservice to the original conceit, but also it's like, yes, there's not really any way for it to change, but I am okay with that. I have such a blast doing it. At this point, it's something that is like, it's so easy to do and so fun to do. And you know what? It's something that, like, at first it was like, I want to do this so that way we can throw another show on the website, but also I would really have fun doing this, and I don't care if anybody listens. But now people do listen and people do enjoy what we're doing, and that audience is growing. We just had...
And sometimes that's all you need from a podcast,
Yeah.
is to have fun.
And we just had a massive spike in listeners the other day, which just came out of nowhere, and we're like, what the fuck? Like, it was...
Congratulations, buddy.
It then dipped back down. I don't know where the fuck that spike came from. I like Gage's theory. What was your theory again?
My theory was that Weird Al had, like, 1,000 different cell phones, and he just wanted to listen to it. So he told his team, he's like, all right, just download it on all thousands of my phones. I'll get to it eventually on one of those phones.
He just has a bunch of burners that he throws, like, when he's done with
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he just breaks
It
it.
was the weirdest thing. Like, literally on Thursday, I looked at the numbers, and we got 10 times as many downloads that day than we had any other day of the podcast, which was so weird. Like, literally half of our downloads for the month came from that one day.
It might be because Couch Potato is a popular...
It was before we released Couch Potato.
Yeah, it was like...
Oh!
It was weird, and it was like 70 downloads on every episode type of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that's like 70 new listeners who wanted to go through and download every song in the library, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like stuff like that I'm like, I don't need this to change. And like, that's something that people have brought up to me is like, won't you eventually run out of content? And like, yeah, we will, and then we'll do something else. Like, we're always doing something else. We already have another podcast. I want to do other podcasts as well. And it's like, for me, it's not as much a vehicle for Weird Alphabet itself to grow and expand, but if it keeps attracting new listeners to the whole thing, and the whole thing grows and expands and continues, the whole thing being Pipedream Podcasts, or just being our podcasting friends and family in general, to keep growing and expanding, that for me is how that expansion happened.
Let me ask you something, and I'm genuinely curious because it's sort of already happening with Almost Adults.
Yeah.
But because of Thank You Internet and Weird Alphabet sort of like expanding and growing every now and then, and you're having audience interaction, do you feel like you have to change the podcast, or on the flip side, keep it the same because of that audience pressure?
Honestly, I feel more pressure to keep the show the same the more we get audience interaction. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Michael?
I'll piggyback off of what you just said. So I feel like I'm with you on the terms of like it's fun, we're having fun, we just want to do it for the love of fun, as well as what's not broken doesn't need to be fixed. I do think though that if it does come down to it where we as a group go, okay, it's getting a little stale now, how do we like spice it up?
Yeah.
And
I had to. I'm sorry.
But yes, basically, if we gotta spice it up with a little bit of anal, and we might have to do that. But
Weird
that's
Alphabet
only
is a
when-
PG show.
Exactly. It's like, that's like a bridge we'll cross if we have to cross it. In my mind, you know the purpose of the show going into it.
Yes. It's like you know what you're getting when you go into it.
Exactly, and I feel like the only way that we can expand is by doing more of like what we did with the CNR episode,
Yes.
where we bring on like
Which I would like to do that type of thing. It's hard to bring another voice into the fold because it would just get way too chaotic.
Tell the Almost Adults audience what you did for that episode.
Oh, yeah. So what we did is we have a friend, we know a guy who is like the biggest game show enthusiast on the fucking planet.
Written
Like,
books and
this guy
podcasts.
has written multiple books on the subject of game shows. And he's a fan of us and our stuff. I think it was Dan who had the original idea of how to do it. Let's ask him to record a couple minutes. He asked for 2 minutes. He gave us 10 of information about Charles Nelson Riley because he's most known for the match game. And talk about this guy and his history, and then we'll play that as part of the show. And for me, originally, we were debating about how to work it into the show. Do we play it at the beginning, at the end, in the middle? And what we ended up doing is listening to it all together and like pausing it and restarting it, mostly in like the first half of the podcast. If you've never listened to the Weird Alphabet, of the 20 minutes, it's like the first 10 are just us talking about the song, the history of the song, the original, the remake, you know, similarities, differences, and then also just like we recorded an episode for Craigslist recently, which I think is going to be coming out. It'll be already out by the time this episode releases. And that's like, oh, have you ever bought things on Craigslist? Like, what's your Craigslist? Like, we'll talk about the subject of the song as well. I say talk about, but it's a whole lot of dicking around. And then like the second half is we'll go more into our segments. Dan will go with his deeper meaning, and then Andrew with the fun fact, and so on and so forth. So we had that CNR clip from our friend Adam as like basically the backbone of the first half of the episode. Turned out really well.
I agree.
I've already am in talks with certain people to bring them on.
Oh, really?
Do the same thing where they record something and then go.
Because I got to be honest with the whole Adam thing, I was skeptical and feeling resistant about it all the way up until actually releasing the episode. Having him do it, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then recording it, even as playing it as part of the show, like I was still like, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know what I should cut around, like all that kind of thing. But you're right, like it did end up being, I think really the story of me and Pipedream Podcasts is just I'm wrong and need to just get my head out of my ass.
Yeah.
If I can just interject for a second,
yeah.
going back to what you were talking about, the Weird Alphabet, I think your idea on you don't need to grow and you like exactly what it is, and people have asked you like, oh, doesn't that kind of constrict you, or doesn't it have a finite end and that kind of thing? I think that's a perfect niche, whatever,
Yeah.
however you pronounce that, for a podcast, because in today's day and age, it's become so easy to produce a podcast. I mean, that's not saying that it's easy to make a good podcast, one of good quality, but with everyone having a microphone on their computer, everyone has pretty much the capacity to make a podcast. And so with that being said, we've now flooded the internet with content.
Yeah.
And most of it is just these people shooting the shit and directionless.
Yeah.
So I think it's a brilliant idea to go as specific as possible, even though people will know exactly what they're getting into when they enter the podcast. That's the exact idea.
Yeah.
You have this audience that knows exactly what they want. This podcast is going to give it to them. And if it has a finite end, that's perfect. You have a goal. You have a destination that you know eventually somewhere down the road you're going to get to. I think it's brilliant.
And it's something also that, like, being able to highlight our voices, also being able to highlight Dan and Andrew's voices, because I would love to be able to keep making stuff with them, other projects. I know Dan has, for a while, been spitballing different fictional scripted audio stuff. There's this one series that he's not working on anymore that really bums me out because I so badly... Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I know what you're talking
The one with the initials BALNH? Yeah, okay. I so desperately want that to be a thing, and Andrew has been trying to do a gaming channel and stuff, and like it's also a way for us to highlight each other's voices, and because like what you were saying, Jean-Claude, if people know what they're getting into, so it's easy for them to be like, oh, I can listen to this, as opposed to, well, there's 1,000 podcasts of just friends talking about nothing, so how do I know that I really want to listen to this one? But it also gives us a chance to exercise our voices, exercise our personalities, and be able to expand into other things. Honestly, if I would put it to anything, it really does feel like, I don't know. Okay, I can't think of a good allegory, but it is a really excellent place for us to be able to practice those skills of being able to keep developing that personality. And honestly, I wish that this is the first thing that I ever tried to do with this specific a thing. I'm glad that it wasn't the first thing, because I don't think it would be as fun and enjoyable to make if I hadn't practiced doing audio in other forms, but at the same time, I feel like I have been able to develop what it means to have a voice on a podcast more doing Weird Alphabet than any of the other podcasts that I've tried to develop.
You brought up a good point, kind of the finite end, because all these podcasts, every podcast, it's got to have an end somehow.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, what are your folks' opinions on how each one of our podcasts should end?
That's a good question.
Well, let's start with Thank You Internet first, because that'll be kind of the easiest one to put a top on, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Because the last song, I believe, is your horoscope.
Or Weird Al?
For Weird, yeah, the last, unless Weird Al releases an album or two.
Okay, so we're starting with Weird Al.
Yeah, that's
Thank You Internet.
No, you said Thank You Internet.
Oh, did I?
That's why I was confused. I'm like, that's the easiest? I thought Weird Alphabet would be the easiest.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. I thought I said Weird Al.
I'm glad that you have lots of practice in, talking on podcasts and know how to get your point across.
Yep, that's exactly it, right, David?
Michael, continue.
Yes.
Throwing Michael under the bus.
So-
Become a real asshole because of podcasts. I'm sorry, guys.
Your horoscope. That'll be the end. There's still room for us to maybe even talk about the TV show briefly, but I feel like doing a live show, like at the very end, or having some sort of like...
This is my goal. Your horoscope for the day isn't going to be the last episode. Interview with Weird Al. That's going to be the last episode. And I know that, that would be going out on top. That's how I want it to be.
I mean, I wouldn't say no to that. That'd be awesome.
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but god damn it, do I want that to happen.
I mean, we've already been writing up questions. I've been keeping track of all these questions that we were going to ask.
Yeah, because we
Weird
always
Al.
have these weirdly specific
Like, why
questions.
do you hate potatoes? like that type of thing.
What is the true story behind the number 27?
Yeah,
Although
exactly.
we already know what it is.
Oh, yeah, we totally know what it is.
We listened to our Craigslist episode. We cracked the code.
Okay. Looking forward to that episode.
It's ridiculous. Okay, so then Thank You Internet now, right?
Oh, hang on. John Claude and I didn't get a chance to end Weird Alphabet. How we would end Weird
Oh,
Alphabet.
sorry. Yes, go ahead. Sorry. I thought you were just asking about, like...
Oh, I'm sorry. Why does your opinion on the Weird Alphabet... I'm just kidding.
That's what I'm wondering.
You know what? Fine.
No. Go for it. Go for it.
No, I'm interested to hear.
Okay.
I think in an ideal world, in a world that is based upon merits and in a meritocracy, Weird Al would recognize that you have created this crazy amount of episodes dedicated entirely to his works, and he would humble himself and join you guys on an interview. I think that would be a perfect scenario to end it on.
And try to put together a big live episode. Hopefully we have enough of an audience by then. And during the interview, I'm just getting a tattoo of Boba Fett playing clarinet on my leg.
That's right, because
in the middle of the interview.
Promise.
I promise, and I'm gonna hold to it. If we get Weird Al on the show, I'm gonna get that tattoo.
Absolutely, while everyone else slowly inches their way closer to him on the couch and then places their hand on his thigh.
I just imagine all four of our hands just tell me more.
The last thing you'll hear is all of us going, goodbye, and just that's it. That's all you hear.
If we can get him to do our Weird Alphabet intro at the same time as us, where we all say it at the same time and try to say our name, that would be my favorite thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead.
Alright, so you finish up, you did your horoscope, and then you recap, because Weird Al has done 20 albums since then. So you do all of those as well, and then you do the lesser-known album that you totally forgot about. And then Andrew tries to give the fun fact of the day, and his lies finally catch up with him, and they flood his mind. He ends up breaking down on the show, crying and say, "Guys, I've been lying this whole time." And then he kisses Dan, and they go into the moonlight, and it's just you guys, and you're like, well, let's start a new podcast. Why not call it Thank You Internet? And that's the origin of Thank You Internet.
And then we go back in time.
And then you go
with the
back
Weird
in time.
Alphabet. I'm sorry. I'm just too many references to...
Yeah, by the way, I have no idea how I would end it. I'm just like, oh, well, why didn't I get to end Weird Alphabet?
You're saying you want to be the end, you want to just come at the end and just shoot everybody with a shotgun and be like, I've ended Weird Alphabet. Is that what you just said?
That's morbid.
Yeah, why would you suggest that, David? Why would I shoot any of my
You just said
friends?
I wanted to be the one to end Weird Alphabet. Those were your words.
Oh, I wanted to end Weird Alphabet as in canceled the show.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go on.
We know exactly what you meant, Gage.
That's a conspiracy theory for another time. Michael, how would you end Thank You Internet?
boy, that's a good question. I mean, I don't really know because depending on what happens, because like I would want the show to continue to grow, and I have ideas for like the spin-off show that possibly would tie into it.
You have an idea for a spin-off show?
Well, yeah, I've already brought this up to you. This IMBD.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Weird Alphabet still. Yeah.
No,
IMBD.
yeah. IMBD, yeah. And
Great, to make it.
I've been putting in the money to get all that.
That's true.
He spent $17 on all 3 Fred movies, which I think is vastly overpriced.
It is very overpriced. But yeah, so how I would end it would be maybe going back, and I mean, I would hate to just have it be like an episode where we just go and we talk about all the guests we've had, and you know, if anything, I would love to just be able to bring those guests for like a brief moment. Maybe if we wanted to end, have it be a bunch of, I would say, re-interviews or like revisited people. Like we go back, we're like, hey, Vincent Kavanaugh, when we talked to you, your career was just starting. Where are you at now? You know?
Like, can I have some change?
Yeah. God.
Love you, Vinny, even though you don't follow me on Twitter.
Oh, see, there's a bunch of shade is being thrown everywhere. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think maybe that would be a fun way to end it. I mean, at that point, I don't know, maybe a video. I mean, who knows? I mean, it really just depends on how big we grow. Because if the bigger we grow, the bigger of an end it'll be.
That's funny that you said that you bring all the people. Because for Almost Adults, I haven't brought this up to Jean-Claude, but I wanted to do a Christmas special where we do a very corny Christmas special and be like, oh wow, we're snowed in. What kind of guests will come along this neck of the woods?
Oh, that'd be great.
We'll have like people come in and say Merry Christmas and give us like these make-believe gifts.
But the thing is, it has to be like Jean-Claude, you're gonna have to your work cut out for you. You have to add in like the snow and the door sounds. Like the jingle bells, like the and like the stepping in.
Oh yeah, no, it'll happen. It'll totally be good.
That's a great idea.
Oh, by the way, you just promised that we would go till Christmas. Guys, we got renewed.
Yes.
You know, It's an interesting thought because I honestly have never really thought about the end of Thank You Internet, the end of Almost Adult. And because podcasting usually, it's not something that people think about the end. They just kind of assume that they're just going to keep going on until they die. It's something that is not traditionally a thing. If podcasts usually don't end. But that being said, when I think about other stuff that I want to think about making, a lot of it has been stuff that does have an end or is more of a seasonal thing. I would love the idea of making shows like Serial, that in the sense that it has seasons of we'll do 10 episodes and put a ton of work into it, and then we'll come back next year and do another 10 episodes and put a lot of work into those. That idea of doing shows, doing content is something that doesn't happen a lot in podcasts, but I think could totally pay off, and it makes it a lot easier. A show having an endpoint, you know that it's going somewhere, is more appealing. Maybe it's also because I like the idea. It's like, oh, well, that means I can also have more time to watch 15 shows instead of only watching 2. Doing that same element with podcasts makes a lot of sense.
So how would you end Thank You Internet?
Like if I knew the end was coming?
Yes. If Michael's like, I'm moving away and we can never do this again.
I will never do a Skype interview.
Don't call me.
I don't know. It's not something I've really thought about. And if I knew that the end was coming, I don't know.
Let me add this.
I don't really want to change Michael's idea. I think Michael's idea is fine.
I mean, I feel like if we were to do like a finite end, I like my idea, but I also think that for Thank You Internet being an interview show, I feel like it would almost be appropriate too to just have an end and just not really gush about having a huge ending now. Right. If anything, it could be very simply a discussion where we talk about everything that has happened, talk about how we've changed as people, as content creators ourselves, and then just end it there. I mean, I would love to be able to have guests back on and be able to do that like leading up to it. But, I mean, ultimately, it's basically like an inside the actor studio type of thing where it just kind of ends.
I mean, if we were to try to do a show in celebration of us, I mean, there was an element of that when we tried to do the Thanksgiving show last year. It's going to be our least downloaded episode ever. We don't have that kind of audience for Thank You Internet. People don't listen to that show because they love me and Michael. They listen to it for the interviews. And doing any sort of celebration of the show, I don't think anybody would really care about that much. Except for Gage.
I would love it, man. I love the show. Tie me up and call me Sally. I want to see the episode end where you get the brothers chaps on, and then you get Vinny back on, then you get Ethan, Zachary, Scott back on, and then it's just a discussion episode with you two. That's how I would end thank you.
I would love to do, like, didn't we record an episode, me, you, Vinny, and Ethan?
Yeah.
And then at the recording phase, like,
well, your computer died.
yeah, that's what it was, and we lost half of the episodes.
Yeah.
But, like, honestly, I think just, like, the four of us would be, like, makes for some interesting discussions.
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, especially now, like everybody's forming very solid opinions right now. It's very.
Do you know what I really want? I want Vinny to have a podcast on Pipedream Podcasts. I think he would be great.
I think
I'm just waiting for him to ask me, hey, I've got this idea for a show, and be like, yes.
You'd have to follow me on Twitter first. Pew, 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 pew.
I know, when we finally get those email addresses set up, Gage is going to be one with an email, so.
Wait, what?
We're only going to get three
Oh,
email
that's right, we're
addresses.
getting-
Three addresses.
Three
when we finally
addresses
get that
for
set up.
pipedreampodcast.com, and it's going to be me, Michael, and David.
Sorry, Jean-Claude.
Oh, that's okay. I totally understand.
Andrew and Dan don't get one either. But when we get more email addresses, we'll get you one as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. Yeah, Gage has been always the one that handles the emails and stuff like that, so is the most appropriate.
Yeah, I suppose so. John Claude, how would you end Thank You Internet from the couple episodes?
How would I
Jean-Claude, do you
fade
listen to
up?
anything on Pipedream Podcasts?
I'm sorry?
That's what I thought.
He's asking you, did you listen to Thank You Internet or Weird Alphabet?
Yes, I've listened to a few episodes here and there.
Yeah.
The ones that I picked out who the actual people were that I knew, I was like, I actually know this name. All right, I'm going to go. And usually they're back in the beginning, so things have changed since then.
That's
but
honestly, that's something that like I get bummed about with Thank You Internet sometimes is I feel like some of our best episodes are with people that nobody knows the name of. I mean, like He-Man Sings.
Yeah.
I can never remember his name.
Oh shit, that's amazing.
He is...
Circus.
I don't remember his name now. See, that goes to show you, when we put his name as the first thing you see on there, nobody's going to listen to it. But also, like, even like, oh, the He-Man Sings, that's probably not going to be that interesting. No, his story is fucking amazing. Or the guy who made Daft Hands. That's another thing. There's like... I loved his story, but nobody listens to those episodes because it's not Jason Steele.
Yeah. Just real quick, it was Jay Allen.
Jay Allen, thank you.
I didn't look it up. I just remembered.
Thank you. I never remember as Jay Allen. That's part of the problem.
No.
But okay, go ahead, John Claude. We cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, no. It was just going to be a stupid joke where you fade in and then you both just in unison just like, thank you, Internet, and then that's it. That's it.
Perfect.
It's still a 5-second episode.
All right.
The last episode literally is just 5 seconds. Thank you, Internet. And then thank you, Internet. And then that's it.
That's it.
Oh,
and
man,
then your
I keep
listeners are just
forgetting
like,
to
the
use that
fuck?
clip. I need
That
to
was
use that
it? Like,
clip
there was no
again.
lead up to, like, the next episode coming up is our final episode. No, it's just like, people think you're going to go for another year or two. It just comes out of nowhere, and they're just like, wait, what? What was that?
We just pull a Prince. We just get up and just walk out when we're done.
Peace.
We're like, cool. And yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Now it's time to end Almost Adults.
Okay.
I mean, this isn't the last episode.
That's what I thought. This was your last episode. That's where you bring us on, right?
I mean,
Oh,
because
no.
you're giving us the evaluation, right? Like, we
Oh,
could
yeah, that's right.
end it right now.
You
What,
could end
Jettison-
it right now. You do have that power.
No, we
Jettison, you
honestly
fuck with
though, that's the thing with Pipedream Podcast as it is right now. If you weren't on our website, like, how many of your audience listens because they found you through Pipedream Podcasts?
And I'm probably 0%.
Exactly. And I eventually like to change that. Like, I'd eventually like, that's why I want to keep expanding and growing in new things on Pipedream Podcast. So it gets to the point where people can go on and be like, oh, I like this show. There's other shows with talent and stuff as well. But that hasn't happened
Right.
yet.
By the way, I'm terrible at promoting at the end of like our podcast. I would love to say, check out our other stuff on Pipedream Podcast, because you do that all the time on Weird Alphabet and Thank You Internet. But I do not return the favor, unfortunately. Not even
Piece
for
of
myself.
We do not return the favor. I need to be more proactive about that as well.
Well, you are returning the favor by dedicating an entire episode to it, basically. Like,
yeah.
this whole episode is just Pipedream Podcasts, the ep.
Yeah, though we don't have Dan and the other one on.
Dan and
True.
Andrew. Oh, we need to do a mega cast of just everybody.
I was actually
my
thinking
God.
we do like a Pipedream Podcast Civil War. And it would be me and John Claude on one side, maybe one of our future podcasts on there as well. And yeah, I know, it's exciting.
Oh shit, speaking of Civil War, I call Spider-Man, by the way.
Oh, totally, yeah.
So I had this idea of, this is a complete tangent, and we'll just zoop right back in a second. I'm trying to do this thing where I go to visit hospitals and visit kids
Yeah.
as superheroes. I ordered a Spider-Man costume way back when.
We talked
and
about
it
this
finally
on the
came
Halloween
in.
episode,
Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh.
Are you with them right now, Gage?
With who?
Are you all in the same room, by the way?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna send Gage a quick photo of it.
Yeah, just
Get
text
ready
it to
to
me.
cream your pants, and then we
All
can,
right, that
whenever
sounds-
you find
that
it.
sounds rad. Oh, wait, here's the costume.
Yeah.
Sick.
That's legit.
That is so rad.
Right out
That
of the
is
comic book, dude.
awesome, man. Anyways, let's talk about the morbid end of Almost Adults.
So would you guys be Team Cap or Team Stark?
We'd probably be Team Iron Man, because that's the one Spider-Man's on.
Yeah, I'm a Stark guy.
I probably would play the role as a Black Widow just because I'd be like...
Because you got the red hair, man.
and I'd be like the in-between, where I'd be like, don't worry, I'm totally helping you out, Gage. I'd be like, run, David.
Well, here's my pitch to you guys for the Civil War. It'd be a monthly thing. We would just buy something for a month. Or we might put it on all our separate channels. But the thing would be, we would have 4 episodes, or 5 episodes. The first 4 would be 2 people from the different podcasts, the Almost Adults and the Almost Adult spinoff, and someone from Weird Alphabet. And they would, like, debate each other on some stupid topic, and then we would all come together in the final episode to duke it out. That might be too chaotic, but...
But I like that, though. I think if I were to end Almost Adults, I would want it to be a mega cast where you brought everybody on the show that you've had, or at least tried to bring as many of them on as humanly possible, because I understand, like, with Mick and a few other people, like, they might be a little hesitant.
Mick's my BFF. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying hesitant to be in a Skype call with that many people.
Right. What we would do, we would bring them in individually and record them in different times.
Well,
you want them all in the same room at the same time.
All
you know how many guests we had, man?
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it would be the best.
Have you had more guests than episodes at this point?
No.
Oh, okay. But I feel like there's episodes where like, oh, now we have 4 new guests on, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but I just think it's funny how you guys have a lot of guests all the time. It's great.
Yeah,
we do.
That's my idea for the Pipedream Podcasts cinematic universe.
Awesome.
But Michael, I would
Does that make me Cap?
Well, you do have a cap.
Cap is usually my favorite superhero. Although Civil War made me Team Iron Man. Andrew would probably be Ant-Man. Dan would be...
Man.
Dan, man.
All right, we only have a couple minutes left.
Yes.
How would you end Almost Adults, David?
I don't know. I love the idea of getting a whole mega cast of, like, everybody sitting in a room together. But again, like, the only way that show would end is if you guys were officially decided to be, we're adults now. Ooh. But there's a podcast I heard about once, and I never got around to listening to it. It was a podcast somebody made that was only 7 episodes long. It was called David Loses His Virginity. And it was about this guy named David.
Gee, I wonder who it was about.
It wasn't about me. It was about this guy named David who was a virgin. It was just all his friends telling him things he needed to know about the world's sex, and then he lost his virginity, and the last episode was talking about the experience, and then they ended it.
Oh,
and it's like,
nice.
That's the end of the show. And they just like, we can't do anything else with this. Boom, they ended it. And it's such a great thing, but it's like, if there is a line between being an adult and not being an adult, when you cross that line, that's the end of the show.
See, I feel like we're never going to get to that point. No, I'm serious, because nobody really does get to that point.
No, that's true. That's kind of one of the points of the show,
point.
Especially with your episode with...
Pilar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the end to that would be more of, we've accepted that. Yes. John Claude, how would you end Almost Adults?
So I agree with the fact that I personally would think that the final episode would come when one of us or both of us realize, okay, we finally reached adulthood. I finally feel like an adult. Personally, I think that day would come when either something crazy happens in like med school, or maybe I come onto the podcast one day, I'm just like, Gage, I killed a guy today.
I mean, yeah.
I couldn't save him, man. I couldn't save his life, and then I break down, and I finally come to realize that, like, this is what adulthood is, and then we end the podcast on just the most somber note.
We end it with, hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah.
And then just, it's the entirety of the song.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be a good
That'd be something.
That'd be dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Well, with the whole end of the show thing, like, before, because I know we're running out of time.
Right, we have like solid 15 minutes.
Okay, well, this could definitely take 15 minutes. Not to take your hosting job away from you, Gage, but what do we want out of the idea of the culture of Pipedream Podcasts? Because, Gage, you're definitely somebody who has really become a part, like, at the start, it was me and Michael, and you're definitely somebody who has, like, really become a part of that, and who's somebody that I really want, like, your opinion at this point is just as valid as mine and Michael's, and I would really love for this whole thing to keep growing with all of our voices having some sort of say, and not to say, like, and I'd love to add to those voices as well, with each person who is creating their own thing. I feel like when you are, doing your own show, like that's really when you start to have the voice that you can make those statements for others as well. But what do we feel like we want out of Pipedream Podcasts and where it's going and what we want it to look like 1 year down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, assuming that it might still be a thing 10 years down the road?
I honestly don't see myself doing this 10 years down the road.
Really?
I do see myself occasionally popping in for a podcast, like maybe as a guest, but I don't think podcasts are the end game for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I've always viewed this podcast as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm having a lot of fun and I'm putting a buttload of effort into it.
And it shows.
Thank you. I do think that this is not the final goal for me. I do want to do like television stuff. I want to do movies. I want to make a grand story that kind of reflects my legacy as me as a person.
Yeah.
So
that's good to know.
Who knows? Maybe Almost Adults is that legacy. But
But it'd be nice if there was a TV show.
But it'd be nice if there was like a TV show, maybe starring Jeff Goldblum. I don't know, maybe something like that.
Do you already have like a pitch in mind? Like, I'm going to make a show about Jeff Goldblum doing blank.
I don't have a Jeff Goldblum show pitch. I do have a couple ideas rumbling around.
That Jeff Goldblum could fit into.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum could definitely fit into it.
Jeff Goldblum, if you're listening and you want to be in a show, just...
We've already requested Jeff Goldblum to be on the show.
Send us a carrier pigeon. And...
Yes. That's it. That's all it is.
He's going to be in the new Thor movie? I'm so excited.
Both him and Sam Neill are going to be in there.
I know, it's going to be so great.
That's awesome, yeah. But anyways, I see myself for the end dream of Pipecool is to like harvest talent. That's what I would have, a place for people to grow and do their own thing.
Yeah.
That's what I want Pipedream Podcast to be.
I really like that idea, like, because this type of thing could be a starting point for a lot of people, and the idea of people being able to get their start...
And it could be an ending point for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That might be their end goal.
That's true. Like, for me, I fucking love podcasts, and I would be happy if I'm just making podcasts forever for the rest of my life on 1,000 different subjects. I now have a job where one of the things I'm going to get to do is teach kids about how to make podcasts.
Oh, dear.
That I am so... Oh, my God, I'm so excited. They're not going to know what hit them. Like, it's going to be really interesting to hear what kind of stuff fourth graders will make podcasts out of.
You already have, like, an adorable story about that at camp, right?
Oh, my God, it's the best. Wait, should I share that story?
Of course.
Okay, so I work for a company. I'm a computer lab teacher at an elementary school. And I work for a company who does the curriculum for a bunch of different schools in LA and work for their summer camp. And so this summer, we do this thing called Surprise Seminar. Like, my main class that I was teaching was on Minecraft mod. But we do a thing called Surprise Seminar, which is like, spend 30 minutes every day, and it's just one of the counselors just talking about whatever. And, like, doing some activity with the kids just about literally anything. And it's a really fun thing to do. And so, of course, I had to do one on podcasts. That was a week we had some older kids, but we had a couple of younger kids. And there's this, like, 6 or 7 year old kid, and I'm not gonna say his name because he's a child, but his
say children's names.
No,
that's allowed.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
No, I'm not gonna put out that info to the because
it's not like you're saying his full name. It's
no,
not
it's
like Craig Wilson. I just said. Anyways, go on.
And I was just like, just make sure this is what you want to do for your podcast, and just make sure that it's something that you're excited about and passionate about. That's what makes podcasting fun. And so he was like, I'm gonna call him Ian. He was like, hi, this is Ian. I'm going to talk to you guys about finding things in Minecraft. I'm going to tell you how to find diamonds and how to find redstone and how to find emeralds. So to find emeralds, you have to go really far underground. And that's also where you find redstone. And that's where you find lapis. And to find lapis, you have to go into caves. And sometimes there's lava in there, but that's where you find lapis. And that's also where you find diamonds. And diamonds, to find diamonds, you have to go underground. And sometimes you have to go into caves, but you have to go really far underground. That's where you find diamonds. And that's where you find lapis. That's where you find gold. And then you have to go into caves and go underground. And that's where you find emeralds. And emeralds are worth like 1 million, but diamonds are like 2 million. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye. It was the greatest thing on the fucking planet. It's my favorite 2 minutes of audio that I've ever heard.
By the way, for our listeners out there, Michael seems very over it.
You've heard me tell this story 100 times, haven't you?
Probably, but I was just like, it's so ridiculous. But but he's a young kid, you know.
Yeah, like, and that's
a good way to, like, I don't know. That's a good way to kind of end this major discussion about just podcasting. I'm not trying to end it right now. I'm just saying, like, it's a good way to kind of show that kids are doing this.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, Gage. Like, I think those are the perfect words. Is a place to be able to harvest talent for any sort of type of thing. Because, like,
no, I don't really like that phrase because it seems like we're just milking people.
No, but it's yeah.
Cultivate,
Ooh, there you go. There's Jean-Claude with the awesome language. That's something, like, I'm lucky enough that that's a part of my job, my actual career now, is being able to cultivate enthusiasm for digital skills and digital entertainment, like, in young kids. And that is amazing. And to do that type of thing with Pipedream Podcast, I mean, it's there in the name of being able to follow your pipe dream type of thing. Yeah. I didn't have a way to end that point.
I love that story about that kid, by the way, because coming from an almost adult, there's something about being a kid where your excitement and your enthusiasm about whatever subject it is completely unfiltered and not repressed, and you're willing to just go on and just talk about gems in Minecraft for 2 minutes and just blurb it all away. But unfortunately, as we get older and stuff like that, with people criticizing, or for one reason or another, if we have self-doubt or something, we end up becoming a lot more reserved about our opinions and what we're excited about, that we tend to lose that youthful exuberance or whatever. And there's just something to be learned from that little kid. It was a little bit golden. It was cool.
Pun intended.
Why, because of Minecraft gems?
Yeah, Minecraft. He talked about gold. Weren't you listening to the story?
I was.
It's a mineral.
It's an element. It's AU on the periodic table.
It's an owl.
It's an owl. On the periodic.
All right, let's just quickly go around and say opinions about Pipedream Podcast. We already talked about me and David's. Michael?
Honestly, I want it to continue to grow. I think that if we could probably start adding other stuff that aren't necessarily just podcasts on there too. I think, I mean, with the
Not a mistake on that domain name, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, at its core, everything there will have an element of a podcast, I think. Even with, if I was to do IMBD and put that on there, it still will have a big element of a podcast.
I mean, because you want to film that, right?
Yep.
Because you can easily film that and then just strip the audio and release that as an RSS feed as well.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stuff that does that.
Right.
Just saying.
Jean-Claude, do you have any opinions?
Absolutely. So I would love to see Pipe Dreams Podcast become, this isn't the best example, but it's one that's coming to mind at the moment. So newgrounds.com was this forum for a lot of these independent animators and artists and things like that. And it ended up creating this huge community of people that just wanted to work towards creating stuff and collaborating. And to see Pipe Dreams Podcast become maybe not so much completely open to having anyone submit something, but still being just kind of a forum for these creative minds to come together and produce some content and have a place where they can post it and confidently know that there are other people creating just as good content out there, would be a great goal to have.
No, that is definitely something that I would absolutely love to be in a position to have enough of an audience that I can then use that to highlight other people and say, these people are awesome. That was one of the things me and Michael have always talked about as a goal for Thank You Internet, is to be able to get to a point where we can start highlighting other smaller people that nobody would have heard about, but that can be a place where it's like people first heard about this series from Thank You Internet. People first heard about this cool thing from Thank You Internet, and to be that place. And I would absolutely love to be able to do that with Pipedream Podcast, to be able to give people, because that is something that, like, if there's one big frustration with the world of podcasts that I see, it is not because of the way, there's no centralized system of finding things in the same way there is for YouTube. It is nigh impossible to get discovered as a nobody, for a nobody to have a show that gets popularity. But like being able to centralize it all in one location, and it is growing, and things are starting to stick, and be able to use that, you know, as you were saying, Jean-Claude, for new voices coming in. That would be amazing. That would be a dream.
A pipe dream.
End of the podcast.
What? We haven't done our final thought.
Cool. Let's do that.
Let's do that and get me the heck out of here, because I got to go to work today.
Oh, that's why we got up at 5 a.m.
Exactly. Yeah, we did get up fairly early for this podcast.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Michael.
Come back to me. Give me a minute to...
Final thoughts, David.
You know, I'm really glad that we were finally able to be on the show, although I'm going to let this still be your show, even though technically me and Michael are hosts of the website and producing. I'm just suggesting that I still think that you should get me and Michael on individually sometime to also just talk about almost adults type subjects.
Yeah, totally.
Because, like, I know me and Michael have both talked about things like, I want to be on the podcast to do this. But I'm so glad that we did this whole Pipedream Podcasts, talk about the podcasting world.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was awesome. It was awesome. So thanks for listening. And if this is the first time you guys have heard my voice out there in Almost Adults listener land, go to listen to Thank You Internet. Go listen to Weird Alphabet.
Go listen to those. Did my job.
Keep spreading the word, keep telling your friends, and keep making this thing grow. The more people listen, the easier it is to grow, and the easier it is to expand, to have multiple shows, to be able to keep creating interesting and diverse content. Oh man, I was just talking to somebody the other day who wants to make a podcast on something super niche, but I talked to you about this yet, Michael, but I really want him on. He's a really cool guy and has a great personality, and I really want him on the Pipedream Podcast Network, even though it is like the most niche subject
By
ever.
the way, David was half asleep in the car when I was driving him over here, and I'm like, David, are you all right? Can you do the podcast? And you're like, yeah, I think I'm fine. And then he comes over here. It's the whole
You
conversation.
put me on a mic. You put me
Just
on a mic,
fucking
man.
energy out the wazoo. It's great.
It's great, especially for like 5 a.m.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be honest.
fine, man.
I
You're
do
fine.
feel bad this episode. I hope that I didn't like take control too much because I know I have a
No,
that
you're our
personality.
guest. You're our guest.
You did
But
drink an energy drink.
I did.
Right before.
Fucking I always do
He
that.
did. He started singing Crazy Frog, going ding 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 ding.
Those are my final thoughts. Ding da ding ding dong.
Incredible.
I love having David go first because David normally sums up everything that I'm trying to say in a lot more eloquent of a way. Mine will be a lot more of a, yeah, and this and that. So thank you guys for having me and David on the show. Mostly David. It's actually the first time that Jean-Claude and I have talked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've talked to Jean-Claude too.
yeah, exactly.
Guys,
So
friends on Facebook or
oh, we totally are.
We
but
are.
But we're like, this is the first time we've spoken. So
And had immediate replies and things like that. It's a
Exactly.
cool
What do you
moment to
guys
have.
talk about on Facebook?
Well, we don't because
Not really.
Alright.
We like things on other people's pages, and
I've unfollowed him. I hid his
Oh.
notifications.
You might want to
So
keep that on the down.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I did that.
I completely understand. My stuff is becoming really racial recently.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for real. I mean, he's just going crazy with us talking about.
Anyways, what are your final thoughts?
Okay. Oh, yes, right. Final thoughts. I really hope that all of our shows keep growing, and I think that if I have any faith besides Weird Alphabet to keep growing in a massive way, it would be Almost Adults. I think that the show itself can grow and will grow.
Also, you guys as people, as content creators, as people with an audience,
Exactly.
will grow and hopefully will grow even more.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something that I really do think can happen and will happen.
Right, and
then we won't have to deal with your bullshit here.
I guess, and I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way, but like Gage, I know you said that this isn't a thing that you wanted to do 10 years down the road, and I kind of hope that happens.
Aw, thank
like
you.
I hope that you do move on to something bigger, as well as
Get the
you,
fuck
John
off our
Claude,
website. I'm just kidding.
and then
Cool,
that
yeah.
way we can have someone else come in. What the hell, David?
I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But no,
I'm
no,
really
seriously.
not this much of a dick in real life. I don't know why. You know where we were? I
You
was
know
talking
what?
about.
You were, because when I met you, you were such a dick.
I know.
Just trusted your gut, Gage.
Maybe I am a dick.
Trust in my gut.
I think
That's-
podcasting, I've just fallen into the dick template, and maybe that's just spilling into real life.
And that's all I have to say about that.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts?
absolutely, I always do. So first of
I
all,
always
David, Michael, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. It was a pleasure to finally talk to you, semi in person. You guys both have amazing input into the podcast world, something that I am not entirely like. Before doing Almost Adults, I had no semblance of an idea of what podcasts were about. And so this has been amazing to working with you guys. Second of all, to our audience members, let our podcast be, or our podcasts in general, be kind of a board for you to bounce off of and spark ideas for your own podcast, because
Keep animating almost adult stories. Seriously, that's awesome.
yeah,
Shout out to
And-
Quackatron 3000.
exactly. Don't be afraid to get creative and do something that's really specific if you make a podcast. And also don't be afraid to send emails to people and see if they could be on your podcast, because most of the time people are nicer than you expect them to be.
By the way, our email is almostadultspodcast@gmail.com. So if you want to collaborate with us, we'd be game.
Send your carrier pigeons.
Yeah.
That is a
Son
Weird
of Raven.
Alphabet. If you want to get that reference, listen to the Weird Alphabet.
Yeah,
Pipedreampodcast.com.
And if anybody animates any part of this podcast, just know that I have to have my signature buttons hat. Okay, sorry. Continue, John Claude.
Sure.
Oh, I'm done. That was it.
My final thoughts, I constantly say this to people, but you gotta keep creating, you gotta keep moving on to the next thing. Even when you don't feel like you can grow anymore, I suggest always growing a little bit more. Even if it's improving yourself, improving your content, or just doing something different every day. Just constantly improve yourself and donate to us on Patreon. We are... I'm sorry,
Shoehorn.
I don't feel like I plugged the Patreon enough. But people who have donated, you guys are on fire. I love you guys. And people who have not donated, I also love you guys. Thank you for supporting the podcast, just in general.
I gotta be honest, not to keep interjecting in everybody else's final thoughts,
Sure.
but this whole episode has really lit a fire under my ass again to be like, okay, no, I want to keep making stuff, because I'm not gonna lie, starting a new job, it's been hard to go back into, to keep the podcast stuff going, but thank you for this episode. It's really helped me,
problem,
let's get shit done.
Just constantly be making things. Just constantly keep moving forward. You might lose some friends along the way. I want to say that's okay. Sometimes that happens. People get busy. You got to keep moving forward. Yeah, I love you guys. Follow us on social media if you want.
And go to pipedreampodcasts.com.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
.com. Listen to Thank You Internet as well, because that's how I met these guys, and they do a terrific job hosting the
And
show.
Gage is going to be on at least one of our episodes, probably more in the future.
Right. And I think I should be producing for you guys a little more often. Because I kind of produced the episode that I was on.
Yeah. It's all a big happy family. It's
So
awesome.
we're all a big
collaborators.
happy family. Hopefully there'll be a spin-off of Almost Adults. And yeah, I love you guys. Thank you for listening. And have a good night.
Can I just do something to end the podcast that I
Do
that you
it.
had in your first couple episodes that was my favorite thing?
Go ahead.
Yes! It returns.
That was my favorite thing. I don't know why you guys don't do that anymore.
I think it was because Mick stopped it.
Oh.
Because John
Mick came onto the show and I was like, I can't fart in front of him.
Fuck you, Bryce Pirate. That's the end.